but let's move on to Coop's guy. Well, he goes piss again. Let's talk about Houston's, or really he's a San Antonio native, but Houston University's Kingston Flemings. Kingston listed at 6'3", 170. He's a January 3rd, 2007 birthday, so exactly like a month older than Keaton Wagler, a little bit younger than someone like Darius Acuff, but they're all kind of generally in the same age range. Rookie season will be his age 20 season. This season at Houston on a really good Houston team, played in 37 games, played 31 and a half minutes a game, 16.1 points on 47.6, 38.7, 84.5 shooting splits, grabbed 4.1 rebounds, had 5.2 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.3 blocks, and 1.8 turnovers. Good freshman statistical profile for a guard. Especially some of the athletic numbers are pretty impressive, as we'll talk about. This season at Houston, 26.5 usage rate. The efficiencies are a little concerning. 52 effective field goal percentage, 56.3 true shooting. Not horrible, but not super exciting, to be frank. 1.8 offensive rebound rate is not very good, but 12.9 defensive rebound rate for a guard is pretty good. He was, the point guard for this team. He brought the ball up. He put the ball in his hands, even with someone like Milos Uzan, and then another smaller guy in Emmanuel Sharp there. 32.6% assist rate, really good, to a 13.1% turnover rate. That's a 2.9 assists to turnover. That's really good. And he did this on a team with worse offensive talent than someone like Acuff, who had that 3.0 assist to turnover ratio. As rough as that Acuff team, that Arkansas team was, Acuff having finishers and cutters like Billy Richmond, guys who could make shots like Malik Thomas and Trayvon Brazile. That's more offensive firepower around him than Flemings had. And truthfully, I love Kelvin Sampson to death. John Calipari also a better offensive coach than Kelvin Sampson in terms of this Houston team was hurt a lot by a lot of possessions, ended up with one big in either dunker spot, and so not a lot of space to operate there. 1.3 block rate is pretty good for a small guard, again, playing with two bigs all the time, like Cenac and I can't remember the name of the other guy that Coop obviously knows. And then Tugler,
Sacco or Juju? Oh,
Sacco for sure. And then there are always two bigs on the floor with him, and he still had a 1.3 block rate, which is pretty good. 3.0 steal rate, pretty good again for a guard. Not like in that like elite range, but good. Concerning athletic number, 27.7 free throw rate. That's not very good, but he dunked 11 times, which is a lot for a guard. And I, as I counted, as I always do, I do my due diligence. He dunked 5 times on self-created half-court dunks. Now, one of those was, maybe it was kind of transition, but there was defense in between him and the basket, so I called it self-created half-court. So 11 total dunks, 5 self-created. Only shot 57.2% on close twos, took 166. That's around the same number as like a Wagler, but way better on long twos, 44.3% on 194. Took a ton of long twos. Shot really well from the free throw line, 84.5%. Now, did not take a crazy amount again with that free throw rate being low, 129, but still. 38.7% on 106 threes. Only took 5.6 threes per 100 possessions, which is a concern. Coop, looking at the statistical profile, what stands out about Flemings?
Dude, I knew this guy took a lot of mid-range jumpers. Holy fuck. Dude. What is wrong with this guy? Taking 200 mid-range jumpers as like the secondary option on this team. I mean, they wanted Milos to dribble the ball before him, and they wanted E-Man to take more shots than him. Jeez Louise, dude. Way too comfortable getting into that mid-range. For a Houston Cougar, a 1.8 offensive rebound rate. Pretty despicable. But this team was not as good on the O boards as most years. They weren't just a great defensive or rebounding team as good as they have been in the past. But I think that they really, at times, leaned into Kingston's strengths, I think especially to start the year when literally nobody else could play on offense. Um, and you can kind of see that in his statistical output. Starts really strong and then just kind of tapers off the rest of the year. Has some big games against good teams, but just really struggles as the offense kind of gets fully away from Kingston ball a little bit there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I did a couple here. One, I guess you would call this bad. I think there's some interesting names here. This is a free throw rate less than 30. Uh, uh, Guys that were 6'3" or excuse me 6'4" or shorter, who dunked 10 times, and were drafted in the lottery. This is freshmen, sophomores. Donovan Mitchell did this twice. Jamal Murray did this. Buddy Hield did this. Kassan Wallace did this. The person I thought of the most, far and away, and I don't know if this is a comp that's come up or anything like that. I don't know. Again, I don't look at this stuff or read this stuff. He reminded me so much of Donovan Mitchell, and so I kind of cheated this query to get him on a query with Donovan Mitchell, because. And I promise it's not just the one-handed 1 million-mile-an-hour baseball passes that they both throw, but it did start with that. And I think it's interesting that, again, there's so many Spreadsheet FC members, who put way too much weight into single season sample sizes. And I think, again, I like stats. I think it's important to use stats as context and everything. Like, Donovan Mitchell is a star and has been a star for a long time in the league. And like, if you just look at his stats, you'd be like, oh man, I don't know. Other than his 3-point attempt rate, in which he didn't, shoot particularly well from three, but he took a lot. There's not really a ton that stands out super positively about that profile. But he had 3.7 steal rate and he took a lot of threes. Sadly, Flemings did not take a lot of threes, but he had a way higher assist rate, played with the ball a little bit more as a point guard. So he reminded me a lot of him. And I think it's interesting that small guys that dunk, they get drafted in the lottery, generally good things happen. Obviously, Kobe Buffkin, a little bit of an aberration in there. But I like Buffkin a lot, and I'd probably miss on him again. Like I'd probably take that same risk. Another positive one. This is just guys with an assist to turnover ratio above 2.5 who had at least a 1% block rate and at least a 3% steal rate as high major freshmen or sophomores. Tyler Tanner did it this year. Kingston Flemings did it this year. Kid named Grayson Grove, who played 49.3% of minutes for Minnesota, did it this year. He's probably a guy for the future I'll keep an eye on. Reese Beekman has done this. Deuce McBride has done this. Monte Morris has done this. And then a couple guys who didn't have as much success in the league. James Robinson, Shannon Scott, and Marcus Britt. Any thoughts on those? And if not, why don't you start with, again, I kind of want to start on the offense, even though I think maybe the sell is a little bit more holistic. Tell us a little bit about how Flemings goes about getting his buckets.
I will just say you didn't run enough stats profiles to get De'Aaron Fox, Derrick Rose, and John Wall into his stats profile like the Bartorvik comparison tool does. So I think all your comps are shit. I think it's really funny that a guy who relied so much on mid-range jumpers is in comps with those guys. I think stylistically and I think in a spaced floor, he kind of maybe looks more like them, but he's not the athletic finisher or like aggressive finisher that those guys are. As far as how he gets his buckets, we talked a little bit. I think he can really handle. I think this is he's the best handler of the three, in my opinion. He's the only one who doesn't see a second defender and immediately give the ball up. He can take the ball out on a string, continue an advantage, get downhill, turn the corner. He can step through guys. I think he's a really advanced handler. He uses that. Not always the best, but he can hit a couple of strong moves, get downhill, and then he's usually a bit too quick to settle for a fading mid-range two or a tough jumper. But he can also like create a bunch of jumpers off the dribble if that's what you need. He can create a step back three. He can get into, hit something off the dribble. He can come off of a screen, hit threes like that. He can get into the lane if you're going to, not. I think he really struggled later in the year also with college bigs who could just sit in the paint, specifically against Arizona. You go and watch him against Krivas, and it's like Krivas could just stand there even if Tugler was like 10 feet away, or you had Cenac, 10 feet away, and Krivas could just stand in the paint and put his hands up. And he does not really have a floater. He doesn't have like a super, super deep bag of finishes. He's not like going to go up and around like some stuff that Wagler would do, where he'd kind of like get really wide and throw up like some scoop shots. He's a little bit simpler in that regard, but he's also just really quick to be like, okay, you're going to sit there. I'm going to take the pull up. You're going to play your card. I'm going to play mine. To start the season, he was knocking them down at a ridiculous rate, but that kind of fell off, like we've said. You can kind of see it, like especially like games against Iowa State, Arizona, Kansas, Arizona again, and then against Illinois. Like these teams with really, really big players that could just pack the paint against a really bad Cougs offense at times. I think he really struggled with. I think he also he had some great passes when they were able to, especially to start the year before teams really stopped treating Cenac like a threat, and before teams realized that Milos couldn't shoot anymore. When they spread the floor out and would just kind of try to have JoJo come up and set the screen. Oh my God, dude, this guy looks like the prototypical NBA star guard. Like he's getting downhill into the paint. Teams have to play him honestly. And then as teams adjusted, he had to make adjustments, lean more into the tough shot making. But it was a really weird year, and he's an interesting player.
For what it's worth, the other thing he really leaned into was passing. His assist to turnover rate improved over the course of the year. He just threw more assists and less turnovers. I disagree that he's the best handler of these three guards. I think he has the best explosion out of his moves. He kind of has the worst hands, though, in terms of he fumbles the ball sometimes. A lot of his drives are hurt both by his lack of strength. He can't really sustain drives against stronger guards or stronger defenders in general. And then he just fumbles the ball some. He just kind of loses the ball. He just dribbles it too hard or too soft or just hits his hands weird. I think those are things that can improve in time. It reminds me a lot of something Paolo Banchero struggled with when he was a freshman. But notable to me, I really like some of his moves, especially as a pick and roll player. I think his real strength is that this is a guy who I think can run a lot of pick and roll fairly well in the NBA. He's really good at setting up screens. His quick cross, especially his left to right between the leg cross, is just really, and he just explodes out of it so well. His first step is excellent. Maybe best in the class so far of guys we've talked about, other than I guess maybe Dabasa. But really, really excellent handler and explosive downhill driver. I wish the finishing was competent. I just don't think it is. When he has the space to go for a dunk off that left leg, it's really good. Again, 5 self-created half-court dunks is really good. Only one of them was against really bad comp in Oakland. Otherwise, I believe 4 of them were against high major or high mid-major teams. Now he did have, so a lot of his transition dunks and steals came against those shitty teams they played at the beginning of the year, but not all of them. He is a good vertical athlete. Now he's not, the one thing that's not very Donovan Mitchell-esque is a lot of the more high flying guards in the league are 2-foot athletes. He's much more of a 1-foot leaper. But he can really get up off of it, but he just doesn't have a lot of craft around the rim. He doesn't really have a lot of feel for Euro steps. He doesn't really have any floater game at all. His understanding of angles is not good. And him and Wagler did this too, and I should have brought this up for Wagler. He just misses a lot of bunnies, almost wide open layups. He just misses. And it's because I think if he can't get access to that left foot, he just doesn't have a lot of explosion off the ground. Now, there are things that I like. There's a couple times where he's especially Houston would run this play where they're clearing out a side for him to catch and rip against a defender. And he did a good job in that and getting to 2 feet and trying to go strong through a defender. which was nice. There's some moments, but the finishing is really far away right now in terms of his craft. And so he's really reliant on that pull-up shooting. And I think he's a good pull-up shooter. I think his pull-up shooting is a little bit misleading. I don't think he's a star level pull-up shooter. I don't think he has the greatest touch in the world. He's really relying on that negative lean and fade. The mechanics on it are really interesting. He does like the ball kind of comes to the side of his face, like over here, like the right side of his face, not across his face, like you're thinking like a KD or like an old school Lonzo Ball, but to the right side of his face, almost like how a lot of bigs shoot, where they get it on their same side shooting shoulder. His kind of gets there almost Larry Bird-esque. That makes it look more like a two motion. It's not. It's kind of that in that 1.5 motion. But there's a little slight pause that's a little bit more two motiony. And again, the mechanics look two motion. I mean, he was really good this year. He took 230 off the dribble jumpers, but he was only at a 46.1% effective field goal rate, even though he made 41% of his pull-up shots because he barely took any off the dribble threes. It's a lot of mid-range. It's a lot of he can really step back going either way. He can cross going either. He can pull up going either way. Like I love the versatility on it, but I don't love the range on it right now. He loves his elbow pull-ups, which I think those are in the category of good mid-range shots. Like, okay, they're in super deep drop. Obviously, you're playing with two bigs and bad spacing. That's a good one. And then every once in a while, he would flash an ability to get there and hesitate and then blow by a big. But he fell back on the mid-range jumper way too much for my liking, especially because I think he's a really good passer, like a really good passer. He's the best passer of the three guards we've talked about, I think, in that he is versatile. He sees the whole floor. He doesn't have the greatest touch like on lobs or interior passes, but he tries to be really manipulative. He does like a lot of up fakes and bounce passes. Again, he throws these 1,000,000-mile-an-hour baseball passes that are just like my favorite passes in the whole world. I can't lie. He'll throw it behind him. He'll throw them forward. But he was playing in really bad spacing, so he couldn't access it. But then also he was just settling too much. Instead of trying to force some help or some collapse and then trusting that he could throw it up or throw it out, he was just like, okay, well, I guess this is a good enough shot. And that's how Houston has kind of always been. Like, it's how even Jamal Shed would be at times, and he's probably the best passer that's come through Houston. And so I have hope that in the league that will be less of a problem and he can access his athleticism more. But the lack of finishing and the lack of trust he has in himself as a finisher, clearly, like part of I think why he defaulted towards the mid-range shot was he just wasn't making his layups at a high enough rate. But I don't think I really see star offensive player. So before we move to the defense, I think you kind of said you do. Sell me on what does Kingston Flemings look like as a star offensive guard?
I think this is a guy who can bring the ball up for you every single possession. I think he can get into the teeth of a defense. I think he can play it more off the ball, even a little bit. He can hit spot up jumpers, at least, off my head at a pretty good rate. Always felt really good when they made a kick out to him. And he got the open 3-pointers. It just really seemed like he wanted to get downhill a lot more often. I think he can be a lot more aggressive with real NBA spacing, with NBA rules. I really think that this was probably the worst Cougs front court I've seen, like, since I've attended school there. So, like, 6 years. Don't tell anyone I've been in school that long. But it's like CNAC was not ever rolling hard to the paint. He always wanted to pop. He always wanted to get to the mid-range. And JoJo is great on defense, and his hands are just so bad offensively. He had some moments as a roller when you really spread out the floor and he wasn't like just rolling into the most congested paint ever. But they really missed having someone like a Javier Francis who could just go out there, grab a lob, throw it down. They missed having someone like next season and Arafan Diane. I wish they had timed up together. That would have been really fun. But like just these guys who can go up and take some of the pressure off of him. I think that having real outlets, especially like kick out outlets that aren't just Emmanuel Sharp, are really important. Milos Uzan was complete shit for 90% of the season. He had like a horrendous offensive year. there's just so much pressure on him. And once teams figured out that they could just load up on him, I think he lost a lot of the stuff that really was special to start the season. I think you just slowly wean him off of that heavy mid-range diet as anything other than a counter, and you get him downhill, you get him making great kickouts, because I think he's a really great kickout passer. And I think he's an NBA type of handler that he can handle, go through, fight through screens. He can, he has the athleticism to punish you. He can pull up. He can, do all these things. I think he's just a really well-rounded offensive player who can do a lot of things, but was overtasked in a couple of specific areas on a pretty distinctly bad Cougs team.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you. It was a good context for him defensively and a bad one offensively. He only took 46 catch and shoot shots on the year. Now he was in the 96th percentile on those, 67.4% effective field goal rate. That's just not enough. If he's going to make it in the league, he has to be a consistent, confident catch and shoot shooter. He hasn't really flashed a lot of range to me. Again, I'm. It's weird to say this for someone who shot so many and so well on off the dribble shots. I'm just not confident he's going to beat unders by pulling up. And so again, and that combines with mediocre finishing for me to just be like, I'm just not sure I see star. I think what's more likely is that he's a really good, like 3-and-D plus point guard, where it's like, I think he's a good defender. And we'll talk about that. It's a specific type of defender, but a good one who is going to make his open shots, be efficient as a second side attacker and really good decision maker. But I don't think this is the type of guy who's like, man, if we give him the ball, he's the best player on a good offense. I think he'd be the second best player on a good offense. I think he could be, and combining that with being able to contribute to good defense, that's really important. There's only a handful of guys that can be good on both ends and play point guard in the NBA. But I don't see like top 3 value in this guy, just being true. Like, I don't think there's those types of outcomes really, like where it's like, okay, this is, again, the high end for me is like, there is like a little bit of Donovan Mitchell here if he becomes that level of off the dribble shooter. But if he's not that level of off the dribble shooter, then it's going to be really hard. I mean, that's a really high bar. I think people forget how insane Mitchell is as an off the dribble shooter. But similar in that, Mitchell is not really a plus NBA defender, but I think Flemings can be at least passable, and probably good. And the offense is good enough for me to buy. And again, I think there's a floor here probably of like someone who can run a lot of pick and roll off the bench, but I don't think that's the best use of him. I actually think being in a more creative offense where he's running more off ball stuff and he's more of a true second side attacker would be good rather than having to be an initial advantage creator or gravity well type guy. But let's transition to the defense. I do think that's important stuff. I think some people are going to throw out a lot of crazy comps. He's not Drew Holiday. I don't think he's like some lockdown on-ball defender. They had Emmanuel Sharp guarding the point of attack almost all the time because Emmanuel Sharp's good at it, but also because that's not what Flemings is best at. He's still skinny. I don't know how long he is. I don't think he has like a crazy plus wingspan. What he's really good at is he's really smart and active, and he makes good plays in rotation. He can jump passing lanes. He can be a slight deterrent at the rim. He doesn't have like a Derek White block rate or anything, but I think the path for him defensively is closer to like a Derek White than it is like a Drew Holiday or like a Deuce McBride type, where he's like, it's like, I don't think he's going to be locking up the opponent's best player, though I think he can do that okay. Like, he's pretty quick laterally. He gets through screens okay. He's just skinny. And like, I worry about him in a scheme where he might have to do a lot of switching. But if you can find a way to take advantage of what he does best, which is nail defense specifically, is really good. His digs are good. He's really good at tagging the roll. He just makes plays on the ball too. Like, he's just really sudden. His ground coverage is really good. His closeouts are good. He can sometimes get a little bit like sedentary for me when a play breaks down. Like, I don't think his processing is elite. I think he plays really hard, and on this goes for both ends. He plays really hard and he makes the right play when he knows what the right play is, but I don't think he's great at like in the fog of war all the time being like, okay, well, this is what the right play is. Like, I don't think his instincts are insane, but he just plays really hard, and um, he's really athletic, and he just makes plays on that end. And so I think he's a pretty safe bet to be a good defender. I don't think he's a safe bet to be like a great like, oh man, he'll make his career just off of defense. Like he's again like, or another name I bring up, like he's not like Jalen Suggs. Like your stopper guards in the NBA are just bigger and stronger than him, generally. Or if they're not bigger height wise, they're stronger and oftentimes longer than him. I think he's more in that, off ball defender role where he makes really good plays. And again, part of the benefit of him, and this goes for like a Wagler too, is like if they're stuck as the low man, it's not the end of the world in the way it would be if Acuff was stuck as the low man. Plenty of teams like with like a Trae Young or even like a Brunson teams will try to do this. Their version of hunting is not trying to get him switched onto the ball. It's trying to get him to be the low man. If they can do that, then there's the backside rim help is going to be a lot harder, whatever. That's not going to happen in the same way with Flemings. And so that's a positive. Coop, where are you at with the defense?
This guy just he can execute, right? There's not many freshmen who can come in and actually execute the Cougs defensive scheme. He's athletic enough to go play and help. I think you're right. He's not like someone who's like this super instinctive, like, oh, I'm just going to be all over the floor. He's just like, okay, I'm going to play my side. I'm going to play my part on my side, and I will go like get a stop if I need to. But mostly he's focused on playing in passing lanes. He can go be an annoyance. He'll go shove guys at the rim to keep them from getting easy layups. He'll make the rotation. He'll go close out hard. And I think that being a guard who really gives a shit about defense is a huge leg up in the NBA, especially when you're the level of athlete that a guy like Kingston Flemings is. Just being able to get out there, care, make the rotations, the stuff that's not glamorous, do the hard stuff. He's just really tough in a way that not many guys who also then go and handle the ball at a really high level are. And I have always, since the second I started like getting into evaluation, have always just loved these super tough, high effort defensive guards. I mean, I think I was the highest person in the entire world on Deuce McBride the first year we did this. Like, these kinds of guys who just, I don't think he's that level of guy. He's not this like elite stopper. He's not this, I'm going to go be Derek White and play every single defensive position. But I think he can be like a step above good cog in the machine. I think he can be a plus defender for an NBA team. And getting that out of your ball handler, out of, a guy who's a secondary shot creator, out of a guy who I think has primary playmaker level skill in that area is a huge bonus. And he also like played a ton of minutes. This guy played like a lot of games. There's like 37, 35, like these huge minute loads playing super high intensity basketball. And that is really hard, especially at like 19. It's just a huge ask.
Yeah, no, I think he's good defensively. I think he's going to be good. It'll be in a different role than a lot of what people think of as like good defensive guards, but I think, I think he will be a positive defender. I think kind of in the realm, Derek White is obviously a super high bar, but can be in the realm of a guy like that, or like DeJounte Murray, the locked in version, or like an Anthony Black type defender, where he's maybe not just like the most elite, like one-on-one lockdown guy, but just does all these little things correct and can fit in so many ways. And so when I think about my value for him, that's more what I think about is what you're really getting out of Flemings is a slight star bet. Like I think there is some star outcomes here, but more what it is I think this is a safer floor. Now there's a world that he just can't shoot in the NBA. Like I'll be on like the form is kind of weird. Again, I don't love the touch. He just barely took any catch and shoot shots. My biggest concern is that he's just actually not a very good shooter. And if that's the case, then he's probably not really going to, make a huge splash in the league. But what I think the shooting is good, not great. Every once in a while can make, some pull-ups here and there, but really is more of like a catch and shoot guy. But he can exist off ball. He can be a cutter, and he can be a really good passer and decision maker out of second side actions. in bench groups, who's also contributes defensively. And what that means is, I think this could be the starting point guard on championship level teams. If you have other star guys, probably I would say probably two other type star guys in most scenarios. There's a world he could be the second best player on really good teams, but I think of like if you're like this is the guy that starts next to Wemby and I don't know, you don't even really need another star. It's Wemby. Okay, like that. I think that works just great, right? Like that's if this is the guy who's next to if he was next to Shea and Chet, okay, yeah, like that's this. He works really, really well there. And so, I actually view him kind of similar to I did like a Kassan Wallace. He's a lottery guy for me. I would not put him in that tier um, with Wagler and Devonsa. Definitely not my top tier with Boozer and Peterson. But I would have him a whole tier above Acuff, and honestly, maybe even two tiers. Like I kind of got to see how my board plays out. I don't know yet how I feel, but like he's comfortably a guy I'd bet on over Acuff. Even if, again, I think there's maybe slightly more of a chance that like Acuff makes more all-star games or whatever, or makes more money than Kingston Flemings. My strong feeling is that Kingston Flemings will be a better winner than Acuff in the NBA. So my guess is that he's probably going to end up somewhere like the 8 to 10 range, but he could end up as high as right now he's at 5. He could stay right at 5. I can't guarantee that I'm going to like anyone better than him kind of in that range, but that's where I'm at with him right now. Coop, where are you at with Kingston?
I'm struggling in my mind whether I like him more than Devonsa, which feels a little crazy, but I think I don't know. Maybe I'll play it safe and be a pussy, and I'll put him below Devonsa, but kind of in that flawed star bet range for me. I think the thing that I really like about Kingston is the floor. I think his floor is like ridiculously high as someone who tries really hard and can make really high level passes, and like even if he's not like an elite reader of the game, can just go out there and execute a scheme and get shit done. I think that's like a really huge bonus. And I think like worst case scenario, I guess I don't see a world where Kingston is out of the league for a reason that's not like, oh, he had like an awful injury, right? Or he just like literally can't make shots at all. But like, it's not going to be because, oh, he can't defend. Oh, he's not making enough pass. He's not passing enough for us. Like he's just like slightly inefficient, but his process is just so bad. It's like, no, this guy's going to go out there. He's going to hustle his ass off. And I think that and like really high field players like Wagler, I think those are like the two highest floor skills: hustle and like feel for the game. And those two guys are both really, really high floor players for that reason. But I think Kingston's high end athleticism, I think if he just like changed his shot diet a bit, improved a bit as an interior finisher, that's a pretty clear path to stardom that I don't think is like out of the realm of possibility. Right. And even if his high, like, I don't think he's ever going to be like, this guy's not going to be like a Halliburton or a Shea, or even like, I don't think he's going to reach the Derrick Rose, MVP heights, but this guy could be an all-star backup, and he's going to add like a ton of value. Yeah. If he gets to stick around in the league and develop. And I think it's too hard to pass up on.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think the youth is in his favor too. I mean, all three of these guys are young, but he's young, and young plus motor is a good sign. So, all right, I think that's all we got, Coop. This has been great. It's been great talking about guards. We're gonna talk about some more guards the next time. We're gonna talk about LeBaron Philon and a couple other guys who I'm blanking on now. Michael Brown Jr., I believe, and then one other guard.
Are we talking Burries?
Oh, Burries, yeah, Brandon Burries. It was a very guard-heavy draft. I would call all three of those guys point guards from the early returns I've seen. I think some people might say Burries is maybe more of an off guard. I think that one is at least arguable, but Philon and Mike Keller definitely both bigger point guards. So I'm excited to talk about them, but also ready to get to some forwards already. But this has been great. let us know what you think of our discussion of Flemings down below. If you're listening to this as a podcast, let us know what you think of all these guys on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. We've been hearing some pretty nice feedback. I think I haven't checked the YouTube comments, but I've been getting some nice feedback on what remains of twitter.com, and that's been fun. So I hope you guys have been enjoying. We're enjoying being back, and sometimes I'm like, why do I put so much work into this? Like, what am I doing? And then we get on here and we talk for 2 hours and 15 minutes about some basketball, and I remember just how fun it is. So this has been great. It's been the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast. We hope we hit our ceiling. Thank you.